Good afternoon. This is GE6 100, the Understanding the Self course. For today's topic, it's about the spiritual self. Now, for the learning outcomes, at the end of this module, we're expected to find spiritual self, differentiate the spiritual self from the physical self, and describe how the spiritual self is similar to computer connections. The spiritual self is that unseen part of who we are, that it provides insights and intuition to our physical self. The spiritual self also provides other ways of knowing and being well and beyond what we experience with our five senses in the physical world. Our emotions and our five senses will only be portals or access points into experiencing our spiritual self. You know, the concept of the whole person is usually associated to the idea of human beings as having physical and psychological aspects. So the physical domain covers the biological aspects of human development, including growth, maturation, and other bodily changes. While the physical or the psychological aspect covers aspects of development focusing on consciousness and attributes that are not directly observable but manifested in behavior. But there is a third aspect of being human that is as important as physical and psychological aspects, the spiritual aspect of the self. Now, spirituality has been widely studied by a number of researchers and academicians or academics across several disciplines. What remains to be elusive in terms of having a standard definition and highlighting the mind, the body spirit connection. The spiritual self is an ongoing personal life journey contextualized by the belief in a higher being, culture, relationships, nature, and the discovery of meaning in one's life. In his identity development conceptualization, William James proposed that the study of one's identity must consider two aspects of the self, the I and the me. To maintain a sense of self-continuity across time, the I must create and connect the various me's. William James describes the spiritual me as one's inner thoughts and feeling of the self. In his book, he referred to the spiritual me as the true, the intimate, the ultimate, the permanent me, which an individual seeks. The spiritual me or the spiritual self is further described as the sanctuary of our life, or it is the core. It is considered to be a more advanced self, order, or organization than the physical self or the material me and the social me. A number of definitions have been formulated regarding spirituality. Other theorists say that it is the aspect of the self that is associated to an individual's process of seeking and expressing meaning and how he or she is connected to the self, to others, to the moment, and to everything else that composes one's environment, including the sacred and significant. So another definition of spirituality is that it is any experience that is thought to bring the person or the experiencer in contact with the divine. It is not just an experience that feels meaningful. It is also related to the individual's personal relation to the sacred or transcendent, or a relation that informs other relationships and the meaning of one's life. So others would define spirituality as the personal and private beliefs that transcend the material aspects of life and give a deep sense of wholeness or connectedness and openness to the infinite. Spirituality embraces connections with oneself, with others, and with a higher being. So, based on that definition, how do these definitions have in common with regard to spirituality? First, spirituality talks about meaning and purpose that go beyond the physical realities of life. Number two, a second aspect of spirituality is focused on a person's connections to different aspects of one's existence, to other people, to nature, and to sacredness and divinity. Third, spirituality talks about the sacred. It is a general belief that in this universe there is said to be a force higher than the self. Now, sometimes it is compared to religiosity, and it is always compared to religiosity, but religiosity is defined as the adherence to a belief system and practices associated with a tradition in which there is agreement about what is believed and practiced. It is also a formal attachment to the set of beliefs, of values, and practices of a particular religious sect. Now, the spiritual self is somewhat, they say, similar to computer connections. That everyone has, everyone's computer has a soul setting, and it can be linked to a worldwide setting, universal web setting, or the spiritual web setting. And so the spiritual self, like the computers, can be linked physically with all the actual physical wires and connections. But it can also be linked through non-physical aspects, which can be considered as spiritual. However, the best way of enhancing spirituality lies within the self, like constant reflection and meditation of life choices and decisions, developing empathy and compassion toward other people, and having faith in a higher being can enhance spiritual intelligence. It is not about finding meaning in life, but rather how meaning is applied to life. Spirituality paves the way for creating meaning, vision, and values in the things that people do. Most importantly, it enables an individual to further understand himself or herself. And so, yeah, that's it. That's all about the topic for today, the spiritual self.